Paris woke to wet stone and low light, a city that spoke of liberty, while a small room inside the temple swallowed a child whole. Louis Charles breathed in the smell of cold plaster, stale straw, thin soup that cooled before his fingers could steady the bowl. He had been born at Versailles in March 1785, the second son who became the first in line when fate claimed his brother, and by August 1792 he was a prisoner in the temple with a family that was shrinking by the month. The father went to the scaffold in January 1793, the mother in October, and yet their deaths form only the briefest frame around this story, because the center is a boy who learned that silence can be armor when words are taken away. The authorities called him Louis Capet's son, then the child of the state, then only the boy in the tower, as if names could make him smaller. There were men who believed that as long as he breathed inside Paris, the old world had a pulse, so they decided to change his heart by breaking his days. He was separated from his mother in early July 1793 and placed under the care of a shoemaker who served the revolution with blunt hands and a lesson plan that taught derision as virtue. In that lesson, the child of monarchy would be remade into a citizen by humiliation. He was told to sing the songs of a new order, to drink what numbed the head, to repeat words that injured what he once called family, and punishment followed if he stumbled. Accounts of blows and forced intoxication disagree in tone and detail, some written to condemn, some to justify, a few to sound impartial, but the outline holds. The boy was degraded. He was unwashed for long stretches. He ate poorly, slept less, and learned to fix his eyes on one point in the wall until the point began to feel like a door. After the fall of the most violent faction in the summer of 1794, new keepers arrived. Some showed thin kindness, some tried to repair what could not be repaired. Yet neglect had already done the slow work that cruelty begins. His body faltered. A cough took root. A rash spread and retreated and then spread again. His joints hardened. His voice shrank to fragments. His mind withdrew to rituals a child invents when no one answers. He placed crumbs along a crack in the floor and moved them by the width of his thumb, counting because numbers obey when people do not. Outside the tower, the streets argued, the convention shouted, and the promise of rights grew sharp enough to cut. Inside the room, the promise failed to arrive. The boy waited for someone who would not merely open the door with a key, but with a face that meant he was not a political problem. That face did not come. A few attendants tried, a few doctors tried, yet effort that arrives late arrives almost as a witness. The boy had lost weight and lost interest. He stared through the small grate where light seeped in and did not move, even when the world beyond the stones swelled with new songs. Reports were written by men who kept records and salaries. They noted that he had been taken to the roof for air, that he had been given a toy, that he refused broth, that he had been washed, that he had not been washed, that he slept, that he moaned, that he did not speak. Records are cold by design, but the cold spreads when a child is reduced to entries. This is the weather in which a different chill entered the story, the kind that is not physical, the kind that stains memory. When the Queen was tried in October 1793, the tribunal hung its case on heavy charges that reached across years. There was talk of treason, of secret papers, of meetings with enemies of the nation. In the middle of those charges, a new accusation was pushed forward like a knife wrapped in cloth. They said the mother had violated her son. The boy's supposed statement lay at the root, a statement drawn while he was kept in rooms where men taught him what answers pleased them. The question that still burns is not delicate, and it cannot be set aside if we mean to tell his story without flinching. Was the statement reliable? The answer is buried in the method used to extract it. The child had been isolated from the person he trusted most. He had been handed to a guardian who understood discipline as domination. He had been coached to denounce what he once loved and rewarded when he performed. He was 8 when the separation began, 9 when the pattern of pressure set, 10 when the machine had finished feeding. In such conditions, a child learns that agreement is survival and that the shortest path to rest is to give adults what they already believe. There was no independent evidence to support the scandal that followed. No physician who spoke of signs that predated his seizure by the authorities. No testimony gathered before he fell into the hands of men who wanted more than truth. There were only leading questions and the fear of punishment, and the echo that fear creates. During the trial, the queen would not join the spectacle. She turned to the women present and appealed to what she called nature. And for a moment, a hall trained to hunger for blood remembered that a child's name was being used to salt the wound. The regime did not invent cruelty, and the monarchy did not lack for guilt in other matters. But this episode reveals a targeted act that used a powerless boy to scorch a defeated woman and to poison a lineage so thoroughly that even death would not cleanse it. The allegation persisted like a stain that could be pointed at in pamphlets and conversations long after the heads had fallen, because scandal is the kind of spark that travels faster than the wind. Yet when the dust of the century settled, there remained only what the record had always lacked. Corroboration did not appear. Evidence did not surface. The child's words, shaped by pressure and fear, stood without support, and historians weighed them as the product of a show trial that needed shock more than justice. This is how the accusation should be carried now. Not as a secret truth buried by partisans, but as a weapon mounted by men who understood that the fall of a body can be made to seem cleaner if the memory of that body is made filthy first. It did not save the boy. It did not even serve him. It served a verdict that would have been reached without him. After the trial, the tower did not grow larger. The walls did not become less damp. His keepers changed again, and the new ones tried to coax the child back into the present with small tenderness and regular food, yet the past kept its grip. He flinched at sudden movement. He refused to answer even soft questions. He sat with his back to the wall and learned the slow language of illness. By late 1794 and into 1795, the signs of consumption were clear to anyone who could read a body. He was feverish and exhausted, with swollen glands at the neck and pain in his limbs that did not fade. A leading physician visited in May 1795, recognized how grave the case had become, and then died himself before he could continue the care, which felt like an omen in a city already too familiar with omens. Another doctor took his place, and his notes tried to be careful and calm, but the notes could not push the tide back. The child drifted into long hours where he seemed to listen rather than speak, as if the world were something that happened to him from far away. June 8, 1795 arrived with warmth pressing against the stones, and inside the temple the boy's breathing came thinner and shallower, each rise of the chest a negotiation with a body that had been taught to surrender. He died that day at 10 years of age, and with his death the arguments around him did not end. They simply changed shape. The following day, a surgeon opened the small body and found what neglect and infection had prepared. Diseased lymph nodes, signs of long inflammation, the picture now called tubercular disease. The report was written in the neutral cadence of the time, which can sound like mercy because it refuses drama. But neutrality in such a case is a ledger that will not balance. The heart was removed and preserved, a custom that mingled reverence with macabre curiosity. The burial was hurried and unmarked because the city's conscience rests easier when the earth looks undisturbed. Yet the undisturbed ground did not quiet the living. Rumors grew like vines along old stone. A switch had been made. The real child had escaped and would one day return. Men came forward in distant provinces claiming to be him, faces lined by years he should have been granted. Hope will build such shelters when reality is too bare to sleep in. For a time, the legends competed with one another. Then the age of testing tiny fragments brought its own kind of authority. The preserved heart was examined, its maternal lineage compared to the line of his mother, and the match carried a weight that was not theatrical. It grounded the public story in the science of blood, rather than in the appetite for miracles. The boy of the temple died in the temple. He did not walk out into a quiet life. He did not grow into a hidden adulthood. He was a child whose end belonged to a city that had taught itself to speak of humanity while forgetting the shape of a single human life. The tragedy holds because it exposes a fracture across which fine words cannot be passed. A movement that promised rights allowed a helpless symbol to be handled like a tool. A court that claimed justice borrowed the voice of a frightened child to make a verdict seem righteous. A society that feared the return of an old order let that fear justify the slow extinguishing of a boy who could have been protected without endangering the new world. The revolution gave birth to a new language, and in the room where he sat that language became noise. What should have been a citizen became a cipher. He was counted, measured, inspected, and his personhood was ground down into data points that could be arranged on a page. The guardians who tried late to be gentle did not erase the work of those who had been cruel early. The doctors who wrote clean sentences did not cancel what hunger, filth, terror, and loneliness had already written across his skin. When people speak of the Republic learning to breathe, they forget that the air in that room never moved. Stand with the boy in the last hours. He is thinner than anyone expected a child could be and still be present. His hair lies damp against his head. He rests in a position he has taught himself so that the pain in his joints will be quiet for a few moments at a time. He listens for steps in the corridor and feels neither hope nor dread, only the dull recognition of a pattern that has worn itself into him. He looks at the small square where light changes, and for a moment he finds a memory that is not fortified by walls. There is a tree, and wind in the tree, and warm smell in the air that suggests earth rather than stone. The image is fragile and passes quickly, yet even the passing grants a second of ease. A keeper enters with a cup and speaks in a voice that tries to be ordinary, which is a kind of kindness, and the boy drinks as much as he can. He sleeps. He wakes. The day gives him nothing larger than this, and then takes even that away. At the end, there is less struggle than anyone feared, which is perhaps the greatest indictment of all, that death found so little resistance left to overcome. Outside, bells mark the hour for errands and markets, because bells measure time and not meaning. Inside, the stillness deepens, and the ledger the state kept on a child closes itself. Afterward, the city resumes its sentences as if every sentence were a bridge that could be thrown over any chasm. The story does not return to the parents, except to say what their deaths already say. They were the door through which he entered this room, and the door closed behind him. The argument about guilt and punishment may rage in the streets for centuries, but the boy's space contains a simpler truth. A revolution that cannot distinguish between a symbol and a child will lose its own reflection when it looks for it. The guardians who stripped him of comfort, the officials who reshaped his words into arrows, the judges who set the arrows in a final act of theater, all of them built a monument without stone. It is the memory of a room that remained a room when it should have been a refuge. When the legends grew and multiplied, they did so because memory sought to rescue what the world had failed to protect. In the end, the proof returned to the body, to the heart in a jar, to the identical markers that travel down a maternal line. The evidence is unsentimental, and the truth it preserves is not merciful. The child of the temple died of disease and neglect in June 1795. The allegation that wounded his mother was produced under pressure and unsupported by independent proof. The tragedy is not complicated, it is only heavy. If you can carry heavy things, carry this story with us to the next threshold. If this history has held you, subscribe, stay with us, and walk further into the rooms where the past still breathes. Was freedom ever free if a child had to be turned into silence so that a verdict could speak?